In those days, first of all, the teacher knew the family. The teacher got acquainted with the parents, and through these programs and so on that we had, and they knew the parents. Everybody respected the teachers and the parents, and it was just a saying: you get a licking at school, you'll get another one when you get home. And the teacher was always right. There was just no question the teacher would be backed up. And the punishment was, first of all, let me tell you what you might do to get punished. If you whispered when another student was trying to study, the teacher she'd glare at you. And that was enough. A glare was enough to set you, silence you. But sometimes the older kids especially, the hormones would get, and they would be slipping notes to girls and trying to cozy up to girls and things like that. The teacher would then speak very harshly to them, or say you have to stay after school. The very worst thing in the world. There were two intensities there. You could you had to stay in for recess. That was a real blow to have to stay in for recess. And you have to stay after school. That was even worse, because you couldn't get out. You were dying to talk to your friends, as you walked up the road. That was the worst punishment of all.
Then didn't this teacher have to stay after also if you were going to...
Oh, she stayed anyway. The teacher always stayed anyway because she was planning lessons for the next day. Wow. And then the teacher would then go home. Our teachers Miss Zimmer lived in Garrison with her father and mother and her little brother, and older brother too. And she drove a Ford, a Model T. She had a Model T.
That must have been amazing.
And she had a fur coat.
Wow.
And the Zimmer family, they were in the upper leaders of the social leaders of Garrison.
So what happened to Miss Zimmer? Did she get married?
Miss Zimmer got married to a guy named Russell Winter, and she could not have children because she had an attack of appendicitis, and they took her to the Benton Hospital, where the doctor in charge ruined all her insides. So that she could not have children, and she adopted a young man who just not more than 2 weeks ago has contacted me.
Oh, that's amazing!
Miss Zimmer. I took Harry to see Miss Zimmer.
Oh.
And so he got to meet Miss Zimmer. She had blue eyes, and as I said, she was pretty, but the thing that I remember...
Okay, wait, so just for the record, Harry is Millie's beloved husband,
yes.
her late beloved husband. But so what did she say to Harry how long ago was that?
Oh, this was in I'll tell you how long, 1992, because she died 2 years later. She was 92 at the time.
And what did she say to Harry when you met?
Well, we sat down and started the old chin music, of course. Reminiscing.
Why is it called chin music?
Chatter.
Okay.
So I took her in to meet Miss Zimmer, and she caught me up on the people who had been there, like Harold and Beverly Moore, that I got to school and I'd lost touch with 50 years ago. Anyway, Miss Zimmer would, before the programs, Halloween, box socials, Christmas, there was another one in the fall. Anyway, she'd take me home with her in her car and wash my hair and set it with this bluish green gelatinous waving lotion.
Like her
and she set my hair, cut my hair and set my hair so that I just looked so nice.
wow.
for the program the next
above and
day.
beyond.
You see, way above and beyond. I can even remember our conversations at that time.
So tell us about one if you really can remember it.
Well, one of the conversations is these teeth had started to erupt high up here, high up in the gullet, and I was very self-conscious about it, and I tried not to smile, and she said, "Why do you not smile the way you used to?" And I said, "I'm trying to cover up my teeth." And she said, "You smile." She said, "You got the sweetest smile."
So teachers were also psychologists?
Yeah, they were also
morale
psychologists. And then the other thing that Miss Zimmer did that endeared us all was the teacher always had a captain's chair, you know, the wooden captain's chair, and we kids would come in. I swear, the winters in those days, well, just let me give you some statistics. In 1929, from January 1st to almost March 1st, the temperature in Iowa, in Benton County, hovered between 20 above zero and 20 below zero. That's over 60 days.
And you're walking to school.
And we're walking to school in that. Imagine that. And then the snows, the blizzards that we had, and those, Canada, if you look at the map, you'll see why, because there's the plains, and then there's Iowa and Minnesota and Canada, and there's nothing to keep the Arctic air from just pouring down there. Right. And we would walk to school in the snow, and the Schaefers would see us sometimes, and they would call us in and give us cornmeal, which I hated. Give us a slab of fried cornmeal to eat, and put our faces in a basin of snow because they could see we were getting frostbite. And we'd get to school, and then they would send us down to school about a quarter of a mile. And Miss Zimmer would be there with the door, and she would undress us. And that's the first thing you do is put your clothes in the hall, coats in the hall. And then you would go in, and she would put her fur coat in this big chair, and she put the two coldest kids, and we would sit there and unthaw.
Okay, so we're talking about this so many years later, and it's clear that the things that you're remembering, besides the music and the recitation and the kindness of the teacher and the cold and the what
you know something, my fingers are getting cold
just from
that memory.
Well, let's talk about the curriculum.
Okay.
Reading.
See how this could go easy beyond 2 hours.
Tell us what to say. Reading, writing, arithmetic. Is that true? Is that what you learned? Geography, politics. What were they teaching? What were your lessons like?
Well, why don't I just sort of begin with the beginning of the school day?
Okay.
And let you see what that's like. The first thing you would do when you got in school, take your coats off if you had coats, hang them in the hall. And in this hall, we had a galvanized bucket of water with a bail on it, and under a shelf were cups, and there was one cup for each family. We all drank out of the same cup. And then there was an enamel wash basin on this bench here, right by the water pail, drinking water. And there was an enamel basin with water, and we all washed in the same water and the same soap. And each family had a towel, a hollow hook above, and each family, all 4 of us, wiped on one towel. And so you can see that the germ theory of the disease was easily just sort of ignored while we were growing up. Anything else was too difficult. You'd wash your hands, and you'd put your dinner bucket along the floor, along the wall. That was where the dinner buckets went, all lined up on the floor there. And the first thing we would do, we would pledge allegiance. And let me tell you how I laugh at this. This has been embellished, but I laugh at this. Is pretty much what it was. I led the pigeons to the flag and to the republic for Richard stands, one nation and a dirigible with liberty and justice for all.
Now, were you saying that to be funny, or were you
Oh,
saying
no,
that
no,
because
that's what we thought it was. That's, and
Yeah.
I led the picture to the flag as something I saw in a Williams Sapphire. But none of us knew what it meant, not one of us. But we pledged allegiance
Right.
with our hand on our heart, and the flag was on the stage. The stage was about 8 inches higher than the rest of the floor. And
So you've got this one room. I mean, I
Yes.
guess you can't really
and a big fat pot-bellied stove in the middle.
in the middle. You had a stage on one side. You had a piano.
The stage was at the end of the school.
Okay.
The school is oblong in shape. And then you walk in the front, there's a hall, and then the big school.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the stage, and it's raised about 10 inches. And on that is a teacher's desk with the obligatory modesty shield.
Okay, Millie, what's a modesty shield?
It's a desk. The desk is I thought the desk was gigantic. I learned it, and it wasn't that gigantic after I grew up. A big, heavy desk, solid wood, a kind of like mission furniture, you know, all solid wood. And the teacher, of course, would be with her back to the wall and facing us. And there's a wooden shield over the front so that the boys can't see up the teacher's dress. And that's the modesty shield. That's.
Well, I hope there are some pictures of that in the not seeing up her dress, but seeing the shield. I hope there are some pictures of
I
that
have
in the museum.
loads of pictures.
Yeah.
Well, they have a desk like that.
Right. Okay.
They have a desk in the.
So did she have lots of drawers in her desk?
She had drawers on 2 sides of the desk, and she wrote with a Schaefer pen that was orange with a black tip.
Wow.
And wow, I loved that pen. I coveted that
So
pen.
she must have had an inkwell, right? Was there an inkwell?
And she had an inkwell.
Wow.
And then alongside the desk was about an 8-foot bench that was to sit on. This was the recitation bench.
Right.
And it would be to her, hers was on her left.
Mm-hmm.
As she said, it was on her left. And it was about 8 inches. And it was about 8 feet long, 6 to 8 feet long. And this was the recitation desk, and the teacher would say, okay, well, the first class, first grade, bring their readers up to the recitation bench. And we trot up to with our little beacon reader, and
Okay, so is this a beacon reader?
this is a beacon reader. Yes, this is the second beacon reader.
Okay, so this is the Winston
This Winston and Maltby.
and Malty. Yes, Winston and Malty readers by Furman and Malty. This is the second
That's
reader.
the second grade. That would be the second
It's
grade.
got a rabbit on it.
Uh-huh.
It's got some great illustrations.
Aren't they though?
And Philadelphia, John C. Winston Company, Philadelphia, 1918. And I guess this is shared by many members of your family because again it has
easily.
And let's see, what's the first? Oh my goodness, there are a lot of stories about animals. I mean, these may be fables, I guess.
Yes,
or
yes.
The story of the 3 pigs.
Yes.
Which for Iowa.
What else? What else?
Which for Iowa, the 3 little pigs grew and grew. At last they were large enough to go away from home, so their mother kissed them goodbye and sent them away. Then the pigs are in a turnip field, then they go to a state fair. Why the lion liked the elephant? That's another one. I don't know if you can see the text now, but
I don't remember.
but they look like fables. They really do look like fables. And this was if this was a second grade reader.
This was a second grade reader.
This looks pretty sophisticated for a second grader.
Well,
this looks harder than.
I want to tell you something. I have in here the 8th grade test to get out of country school. And I just thought maybe 2 things might be interesting.
Sure.
Might be interesting. You really got an education in those. It was a limited education. That is, we had no foreign language. I have a terrible time with foreign language because I never heard of foreign language. And I really but you really got an education.
Well, this looks so sophisticated for, not sophisticated, but harder than what I was doing in second grade. We had our Dick and Jane readers,
Yes.
which probably, I don't know what kids are doing
I
now,
don't either.
but this has got a pretty sophisticated vocabulary here. Boy, from 1918. Now, 8th grade, was 8th grade in the one-room schoolhouse?
All 8th grade.
So, okay.
And see this, you know, the people say, should we go back to that kind of an education? Yes and no. I think it's a perfect place to learn. And one of the reasons for that, there are many, many reasons. One is that everybody learns at a different rate. And when you have the people from 1st grade up to 8th grade, and you can, and some, you know, you're in that same room. If I didn't learn my gazintas in the say the 3rd grade, I would.
What's a gazinta?
4 gazinta 8.
Okay. That's what they call division?
Yeah.
The gazintas. Okay.
In 4th grade, I would learn it in 5th grade because you would hear them. And this was reinforced, all the learning was reinforced all the way up the line. And then you had this feeling, I never really thought of it until just as I've been thinking about this interview, of how comforting it was to have the older kids instruct me in long division and give history lessons to you really, and then I do the same for somebody else, you see. And I just think that's a fabulous way to learn.
Now, were the older kids family members, or were they friends?
No, they were, let's see, the Moores, the Helmers, Howard Sjogren, the Selks, so you had a number of families. They were all these different families that lived on the farms, and then you'd all gather at that school.
Let me ask you this, okay? We're sitting here in Palo Alto,
yeah,
where kids are killing each other with competitiveness to get into the Ivy Leagues, where parents are asked to intervene, where social workers are showing up at the schools, where, you know, how can we, you know, relieve school stress? And here it sounds like the most harmonious, cooperative thing. Why?
I think that's the word. There is just an incredible harmony, and that's because you've got the older people, the older kids looking after the little kids, and the little kids with great respect looking after the big kids.
But why? Why do you think that was? Was it a different time?
I think it's because they were all together and were raised together. See, it's a family in a way, and we had the big family get-togethers. And so that it was just another family at school, and that's the way you felt it was. And that you carried the same respect that you had for your mother and father and grandpa and grandma and your uncles and aunts into the schoolroom and into the classroom.
Okay, so educators and social psychologists are spending millions to try and figure out how to get that back.
They know how to do it, but you know, the thing is that there are limitations, and I think that would be, I would gladly send my kids up to 8th grade. But then, and also, there was another thing. We didn't have TV, we didn't have radio. We as I said, we made our own music with papers on combs, with harmonicas, with piano, guitars, fiddles, that kind of thing. But we had nothing coming in from outside. You didn't go to a mall. You didn't, for heaven's sake, stay over at anybody's house. That was just, I stayed over, in the entire 12 years, I stayed over to somebody else's house maybe 3 times in 12 years. You were home. You were expected to be home, in your home. But there was the incredible respect, and harmony is the word to use. There is a harmony in the going to a school like that.
Go.
Okay, So you were going to tell me something more about the quality of the education and the cooperativeness and the harmony between students.
Yes, and it's my thought that that would be a great way to start an education, start students' education. And I say that especially from grades from 1 to 8, because school is such a trauma, and you don't have the most important thing in that way. You don't have a teacher standing up there as if everybody learned the same at the same rate, and she's just a news